Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Denise Kirchhoff,
And I'm Dr. Napanji Thomas.
and you are with Speaking Truth to Power Special Edition. Although we have changed to Saturdays from 10 to 11, we have a special edition of Speaking Truth to Power. Right now, today, we have on Julie Dye, we have on Dr. Denton, and we also have on Katie Beth Davis,
Yes.
who will be talking about the Custer statue. I'm sorry, guys. Statue removal, which is actually getting quite a bit of pushback. And for those of us who actually know Custer to know about the slaughter of Indians in this nation or Native Americans, we sort of don't understand what the pushback is about. But we have three guests today who are actually using change.org, talking to the Monroe
County. I forget the actual title.
You're actually talking to the Monroe City Council because the statue is actually located in Monroe. So, who wants to start first? Dr. Dutton, are you okay starting first?
Let's make all our guests live so that we can all join in the conversation. So all of our guests are live. Thank you for joining us and for your patience.
Thank you very much. Dr. Dutton, do you start first with explaining to people exactly, if each of you could, who you are and what your involvement is? First of all, start by introducing yourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Dr. Graham Denton, and local chiropractor in Monroe, Michigan, also a member of the Cheyenne Arapaho tribes. And so that's kind of the history of why I would be involved in this project, because my tribe had involvement with Custer, specifically at the Washita Massacre in 1868. He didn't bother to send in scouts and find out that we were a peaceful community, or a peaceful tribe that had already surrendered to the United States, had a treaty with the U.S. government, and were living on land where they told us to. He was lazy, and he didn't send in a scout, and he ended up murdering our women and children while the warriors were out hunting. And he actually used them as human shields, as to make sure that when the warriors returned, they would have simply overtaken his smaller forces. And he knew that, and he wrote about it. And so that's just one of the many stories where different tribes were massacred when, again, they had treaties of peace with the U.S. government, and yet this still occurred. I was asked to come on the project because I graduated high school, Monroe High School, with Katie Beth Davis in 2002. And so we both knew each other from there. And when she started this petition, she knew that I was Indigenous, and that's why she asked me to sign on to this. And I guess she didn't realize maybe just how intimately involved with Custer my tribe was. But simply put, Monroe is 90% white. And growing up, of course, I wanted that removed, but I just didn't think that other people in the community felt the same. And so I certainly never spoke up. But with the political climate and how it was, I certainly felt that it was the right time.
Okay. Well, thank you for that, Dr. Graham. I think we have a caller. Caller, do you have a comment or question? Really quick?
Hello?
Okay. I know we have a caller on the line. Maybe they're just holding until we finish our introductions. Are you there, caller? Okay. Well,
Okay.
let's go to
Let's go to Katie Beth. Katie Beth, tell us about yourself and your involvement in this project.
Well, I have grown up in Monroe. Like Graham said, we graduated from Monroe High School in 2002. I've been an activist since, I want to say, the Obama administration. I was very actively involved to help get him elected in our area. I did a lot of campaigning. So then, after that, we got Trump. And I started being even more active, and I done like March for Our Lives protest, and children getting separated down at the border from their mothers. I've been a Black Lives Matter activist for 8 years now, and pretty much all human rights, LGBTQ. I support women's rights, everything. So last year, when George Floyd was murdered. I saw him die, and my kids were playing on the ground, and we all saw it on the news together. My kids were 2 and 4 at the time, so it was very hard to explain that and have to see that. And so me, I'm very I always feel like I have to do something. There's always more I can do. So
Right.
I planned to protest. I went to protest down, and the common place in Monroe to do a protest is at the Custer statue, because that's where traditionally people from the city, it's the busiest intersection in all of Monroe.
Right.
Plus, it's right across the street from St. Mary's Church, and that was my church that I've grown up. So every Sunday, I've had to walk past General Custer, and my dad was gay. And he used to tell me, and we're going to church to learn how to be great people. And then here we are walking past this murderer. So, and there's a children's park adjacent to it as well. So we're protesting for George Floyd and Black Lives Matter, and people are driving by and calling me the N-word. They're saying, "Oh, isn't it funny? Look where you're standing. Don't forget where you came from. Go back to where you came from. Oh, you're lucky Custer didn't, survive." Just things like this. And everybody was hearing these, and again, what Graham said, something that I've always hated my whole life growing up here, something that has always caused me a little bit of psychological trauma. Other people hated him too, and wanted him gone too. And people were like, "Man, we should get rid of that statue." And people have tried to get rid of it before. And I was just so angry, and there was nothing I could do about George Floyd, but there was something I could do here. So I created a petition on change.org, and it got over 14,000 signatures on it. And then I did see, I was going through the comments, reasons for signing, and then I read Graham's reason for signing, and I did reach out to him because I had felt, I'm very empathetic, and at that point I just couldn't even imagine what it would be like. I know how I feel as a Black woman, you know what I mean? I couldn't even imagine if there was, a person that murdered a bunch of slaves in front of my church as well, you know what I mean? But even though we have James Monroe, who owned slaves, and our town's named after him, the county, and they erected a statue of him in front of our courthouse. So like our county is very different than a lot of different places. It's very a colonizer culture here. So
well, before you get into that, Julie, let us go ahead. I'm sorry, Katie. Katie, let's let Julie go ahead and introduce herself before we actually get into some really deep dialogue, because you're starting to go a little bit deeper.
Right. Introduce yourself.
Sure. So I'm going to introduce myself in my traditional language.
Wait, can you put your camera down a little so we can see your face? There you
That's
go.
better.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Bojajayak Ginwa, Mishkan Kidokwa, Indigenous Michigan Dodam, Wodwe. I said that my name is Julie Dye. My traditional name is Angry Cloud Woman. I am from the Turtle Clan. I'm a Pokagon Band Potawatomi citizen enrolled here in Dowagiac, Michigan. Also the secretary of the Anishinaabe Caucus. And so yeah, I've been a lifelong activist for Native rights. And as Katie Beth had expressed as well, after George Floyd's murder, it was like all engage. I mean,
Right.
every group hit the streets, protesting, writing letters, calling legislators, doing everything we possibly could, because it was just a remake of the 60s again. And it's just unbelievable what we're going through our country. So a lot of things need to be fixed. People were starting to highlight and point out problems in society, including monuments. And so as being part of the caucus, Graham reached out to our caucus and asked for support on getting this monument removed. And so I volunteered to be the project advisor for this. And we understand it's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. So we're in it for the ride, and it's gonna be gone.
Right, because I think what we can all agree on, because I'm a Black woman from the South, and there are certain places that you go and you see literal slave masters that people have erected statues to. And I look at these statues and I'm like, wow, you beat, killed, murdered, raped my people, and you want a statue. And there are people in the community who don't find a problem. They're like, yeah, but they did this right. And I'm like, you know what? You do enough right that has decimated and destroyed an entire group of people. There is no condition where that you have murdered, you have raped, you have dehumanized a group of people, but you did this one really good thing, and now we're going to give you a statue. And I think that's something people need to understand, that when you walk past a statue of somebody who is literally murdered thousands of your people and has been one of those people on the side of history that was wrong. Just because it's history doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean that we have to agree with it. But why should we?
But it also contributes to that generational traumatization,
right?
Because these are statues who were constantly in those constant reminders of the trauma that these individuals inflicted on people.
It's like an intimidation reminder.
Exactly.
It's like sort of keep your place, because this is what we did to you before, and this is what we'll do to you again. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, because I've gone to some of the posts and people, well, George Custer did good things. Well, he murdered women and children. Should we ignore that because you think he did one good thing? So now you guys, that's what I have to say. Now you guys tell us about the project and how you see it and what's going forward for you.
Right. And would you consider it to be part of that whole cancel culture movement?
Yeah, you're right, Denise. It's typical that many historical monuments will completely erase the subjects' crimes, their terrorism, their racism, in favor of promoting the settler colonial imperialistic narrative. It's a very strong push to save that narrative, and in every shape and form it takes. So this is just a part of that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Does anybody else have a comment or to add to it?
Well, tell us how the Monroe City Council is responding to this, because Monroe is known for the custard statue. My understanding is that Monroe wants to build this whole new industry around custard. So am I incorrect in that? And can somebody, straighten me out and inform us on what's going on?
It's not like a new, like the custard culture has been here since forever. It's not just Custer statue, but there is Custer Roads, there's Custer Airport, there's Custer Elementary School, there's Custer Week, there's Custer Ball Program. There's like a lot of things. And like, for instance, our travel, Monroe County travel website, the picture you have is General Custer is autographing like these newspapers for just a bunch of white children. And it's like, what kind of message, what kind of people do you want to attract here? You know what I mean? And so city council, I would say, well, I presented the petition, and then, we've called and, have tons of people supporting it. And then last year, the mayor had stated that, possibly we would come to some sort of compromise where we would include the real history with him, like an additional plaque. We had argued that we wanted something of equal size or bigger, to go along with it. that would represent all communities, or Native communities, you know, just to have, or to lower him. They really couldn't make the decision themselves, so they released an RFQ. So that is them searching for somebody that's not from Monroe, that will come in and make this decision of what to do with the statue. So now,
you are watching Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Please like, follow, subscribe, and share. If you would like to be a sponsor or advertise on WJZZ Cool TV, please email us at WJZZofficial@gmail.com and join us each and every Sunday from 3 to 9 p.m. for the Backyard Boogie, located at 19730 Roston Street, right here in Detroit, Michigan.
Now, let me ask you guys, when you say they issued an RFQ, so are they looking for a cultural anthropologist or archaeologist to come in and figure this out? What are they exactly looking for?
Excellent question.
Dr. Denton?
The qualifications on the RFQ are worded very broad on purpose because they simply don't know. And this is probably them just sort of putting a fishing line out, hoping they find someone who's qualified. Our group has actually sought out individuals in academia throughout the Midwest area, and actually I attended college out east, and we even attempted to contact that program to see if anyone was qualified to do this. And we do feel that we have people who are extremely qualified. What they've studied and their degrees are exactly in, you know, study of monuments, their effects on Indigenous people or minority communities. So the city, it could be a construction firm, it could be someone who is a cultural anthropologist. That is more appropriate. But even the city planner said they realized that, you know, if they get 5 white guys to decide this whole thing, maybe it's not a fair process. So I think we hope that they do. We hope that they do pick someone who is non-biased and would give consideration to the history as told by Indigenous people. And in this case, for me, it's factual history. That's the issue too here, is you have to get people to sign on to this Custer culture by, if anything, lying or misrepresenting or omitting the terrible crimes that he committed against humanity during the campaign of the American Indian Wars.
Right.
And ladies and gentlemen, our phone lines are open. If you would like to join the conversation, please call us at 313-355-6018.
And my understanding is that the history of why this is in Monroe is because Custer's wife was from Monroe, and supposedly there's still family there in Monroe. But I think what people need to understand is that wasn't a statue donated or sort of put there after Custer's death?
yes, it was. So after Custer had died, he had a terrible reputation, and his wife Libby actually campaigned all over the world to try to get a better name for her husband. Because I mean, like, you know what I mean? You're married to somebody that went out like that. She just, you know, so she had wrote or spoke with President Taft, and basically he gifted this statue to her and Monroe for his service in the Civil War. So that's basically how it got here. Now, the residents of Monroe actually didn't want it, and they had protested back then. There was protests. There has been several protests since then, but and the statue has actually been relocated twice. So the first time it got moved out to, help me out, guys. I think it got moved out to the by the river, out to the
Soldiers and Sailors, and then it got moved again to its current location because at Soldiers and Sailors they took terrible. They did not take care of it at all. It was completely overgrown, and most people forgot about it. Because of the current political climate, though, people are inclined to hold on to something that, again, I don't think they understand. Most people who I've talked to, they gaslight you by saying that you're erasing history. Oh no, we're including his history of the American Indian War. And that's glossed over on purpose again, because you have Libby creating this propaganda basically in Monroe, whereas the rest of the United States, this person is known as the Indian killer. He's not known as a good guy, but Monroe holds on to this because he married someone from the town and he did his schooling there. You know, that's kind of, I've spoken to German nationals about that, and they said that's the equivalent of having a Hitler statue in Berlin because, or was it Hamburg, because he studied at university there for a little bit. It's just off,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, and I think one thing people don't understand is like the president that she worked with, which was Taft. And for those of you who don't know short history, Taft actually helped set up Indian reservations. He actually wanted to set up, as they called it at the time, Indians on reservations that had no timberland. And he did that through his Indian Affairs Bureau chief, which I think was Valentine. And these people did not care for Native Americans at all. So his big idea was to parcel them out onto 80 acres or so out in the middle of like literally nowhere. And I think around 1910, 1912, that decision was reversed. And it was okay for them to be on land with timber, because God knows who needs timber to build anything.
Right.
Wood for a fire, you're Native Americans. Right, figure it out. So I think we have to look at the true history of where this statue came from. It came from a president who actually who helped develop reservations and just say, okay, these populations are too big, they could come in, let's move them on to smaller lands where they literally cannot survive. So of course he would be a supporter of someone like Custer, who spent his life, murdering Indigenous people.
Right.
So when you look at, and when people make these comments, you have to really look at where this comes from. Was this allowed to happen? Why wasn't it okay? Why did it take President Taft? Because obviously she couldn't get it done any other way. But I would suggest look up Taft's history and what he has done to Indigenous people, what his administration actively did to Indigenous people. Right. And then you will understand why he was okay with coming and giving a statue to a community of a murderer of men, of women and children.
Right. And a lot of people in Michigan don't even realize that General Custer actually was charged with leading the Michigan Brigade, or the Wolverines, which they were called, which consists of the 1st, 5th, 6th, and 7th Michigan Cavalry. So these men under his leadership went in and literally helped destroy whole towns, and that's what I'm going to call villages here in Michigan that were comprised of Native people. Michigan has a large Native population, right, and it was even combined with Ohio up until 1920 or something like that. Right. So we had a large population, and we still do, of natives here. And this is why it's so important for us as Michiganders, and me particularly as a Black woman that has Native blood in me from both sides of my family. So we really need to understand this history and the power that we have now to help restructure people's thought process and what they think about Custer and other men like him in the demolishing of certain societies and cultures.
We need to understand that, what, history often is written by the victors, but at some point, the survivors of history, the families that survive history,
the ones that
have suffered, and we've heard these oral stories, we get the right to tell the truth, and we get the right to set the record straight. That's just it. And I think a lot of people don't understand that Monroe is really close to Ohio, and Taft was actually from Ohio. That was where he served, I think, as an attorney general. And you have to remember, his father was also a soldier in the army, in the Union Army. I think his father was also a soldier too. So there was a lot of dislike for natives, like even in the area where he lived, where natives were literally driven out by people like him. So when you go back and look at, well, why did the president do that? That's why. Read your history, people. Just read it and you will understand, because they don't connect it when they talk about Custer and Taft, doing the statue. They don't connect the dots as to why he did it. He didn't do it because he was
cared about the people.
No, he still wanted to send that intimidation, because every time you walk past those statues down south of slave owners, it's an intimidation thing, because these monuments weren't created until people of color and Native people and brown people actually had some rights and moved in. And these
begin to own land and property.
Right. But these statues and monuments were created to intimidate us, to let us know, you know what, this is history and we can't repeat it. And we all know that. As people of color, we know that, because people who have not suffered go, well, I don't see that, because it's not aimed at you. Of course you don't see it. I don't see the arrow that's aimed at me, or the bullet that's not aimed at me. I don't see it because it's not meant for me to see.
That's right. And that monument is so repulsive. It prevents Native people from traveling through Monroe or visiting Monroe. And the Tribal Bureau in the city just deny that fact. We've been speaking to the city of Monroe. They meet twice a month, and we make public comment, and we send letters. And so we just, we're not going to let up. We're just going to keep attending those meetings and speaking and gathering local, state, and national support from organizations, because this is only going to grow.
Right. And it sounds like even during the election process that in Monroe, we need more people that are in these political office that are going to look at issues that concern Native people and other persons of color. So how can we get that ball going? Who can we get in these offices? Like one of you three needs to be in office.
So I already ran for office last election. I ran for two things. I ran for delegate, and I ran for so in Monroe County, it's made out of different sections. I don't live in the city. I live in Monroe Charter Township, which is bordering the city.
Right.
So I ran for trustee and lost because our whole county pretty much went red. But I have not, they know, like my closest friends know, and people working with me, and some of my family knows, but I do plan on running for the next election cycle in some capacity in 2022. We have a woman of color who is currently a city council member. And we try to recruit people to get in office all the time. It's a tough county to win. But here's the thing, when we came out against this statue, and I know personally from my own personal experience this last year, I've had death threats. My life has been threatened, my kids. I've had people shoot in my backyard. I've had like these big truckers with the Trump flags come in my driveway and kick up so it's like,
more intimidating.
You gotta look at Gretchen Whitmer. She had death threats, you know what I mean? This is like, if you are vocal about something that these people are, it's like their security blanket here, this Custer is their security blanket here. And if you come out against it, it's like, oh, we're reverse racist. We've been called reverse racist. They don't even understand that, like, minorities cannot be racist. It's a power thing. You know what I mean? It's the hierarchy. And it's like, you throw these things back at them, and then they just call you, what is that thing that Richard Mitchell calls us? Like these cancel culture kids and stuff. I'm like, you call it kids. I'm like, I'm 37 years old. You know what I mean? I'm an adult with a full job.
You're absolutely right, because this is the thing that's happening. We are when people who have experienced oppression begin to speak out, as we have been for centuries, about this oppression, then we are now turned around and say, oh, well, no, you weren't the victim. You're just trying to blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I'm trying to get my rights. I'm trying to make sure that I have equal pay. I'm trying to make sure that I can live in the neighborhood that I want to live in, not the one that you carved out for me. So why is it when we fight and speak up for ourselves, then they want to point the finger back at us that, oh no, it's reverse racism. That's bullshit. Is what it is.
Like, I'd like to ask Dr. Denton a question, because I do hear this term, cancel culture. Here's my theory on it. I can't cancel a culture that I am not a part of. Now, if you think, I'm looking at more of the fact, I'm not accepting the lies of the culture that you want me to believe. I'm not canceling culture. I'm just not accepting your lies of your culture, because I can't cancel your culture, because, and we all know, whenever you come in to colonialize someone, the first thing you do is cancel their culture. So I find this cancel culture really a colonial term, because when you move people in, when you take people's lives over, you don't allow them to speak their language, you don't allow them to worship in their way, you don't allow them to dress in their native clothes, no matter where that is in the world. You have canceled their culture.
Exactly.
When you stop people from writing their history down, and we all know Native people and Black people, we have oral history. You might not let us write it down, but we have oral history you will never be able to deny. You have canceled our culture, and now you're upset that we won't accept your culture. Now, Dr. Denton, what have you experienced any pushback, and what have your interactions been like when you've gone to the city council in Monroe?
Denise, I'll definitely cover that point, but I wanted to circle back to another one that you made too. And it's kind of the ethos of what we're trying to do with this project, that yes, you need a historical background to understand why this project is taking place. But more importantly, these statues, like the Custer Monument, they drive and perpetuate attitudes against BIPOC populations currently. And so that's the real take-home point from all of this, is that yes, historically, these bad things have happened, but today even treaties continue to go unhonored by the US government. This type of abuse is still perpetuated by these. The reason that the national murder rate for Indigenous women is 10 times that of the national rate everywhere else. Extreme poverty, over 55,000 people do not have running water on reservations. These atrocities continue to occur daily, and that by highlighting this history, this project, that's when you get people to pay attention. So long term, what we're trying to do is actually get into the textbooks and teach real factual history, so that people will have a context for why is the local chiropractor speaking up about this. It's because we know these facts. And when I source these things, I attended an Ivy League school and I studied Native American culture and history there. So I feel like even though I'm not an expert in it, I've got a good base on it to give an argument to anyone using primary resources that Custer, of course, was a war criminal by today's standards, but he was a war criminal by the standards of 1860 also.
Right.
So that education into showing that this is actually affecting the Indigenous population currently. As Julie said, Native people do not want to visit Monroe and would not care to. It'll be interesting. There's a powwow, excuse me. There's a powwow going on June 26th and 27th, the weekend of our event. And it'll be interesting to see how many Indigenous people actually show up to that event, knowing that Custer is there. As far as pushback, I can give my own experience for how this statue affects Indigenous people. I was celebrated growing up in Monroe as a soccer star and for being good in academics. It's only since speaking up about this for a year that I've experienced the most racism in my hometown in my entire life. So that just told me that it's okay to be brown in my community as long as I participate in their culture. When I bring up instances of my culture and where I'm offended, well, I've gone in and I've talked to the mayor and I've talked to everyone else that I can. Those do not go well. I'm typically gaslighted. or microaggressions and racial abuse. At the Monroe Tourism Bureau last week, I was told to be quiet, sit down, don't get political. This isn't political. This is an Indigenous rights issue. This is a human rights issue.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Speaking Truth to Power on WJZZ Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Please like, share, subscribe, and follow. If you would like to advertise with us, please do so, or either sponsor. You can email us at wjzzcooltvofficial@gmail.com and join us each and every Sunday from 3 to 9 at our Backyard Boogie located right here at 19730 Roston Street and on June 20th for the Author Showcase.
Now, Dr. Denton, I want to go back to something you said. So there's a powwow that's about to take place in Monroe. So for those, I actually happen to know what that is, but for those of our viewers who don't understand that, explain to them exactly what that is.
A powwow is where usually one Indigenous tribe or a community will come together and they will perform sacred dancing and ceremony, including drums. Drums is a big part of it. That is for the public. That these are ceremonies that anyone can attend. We also have ceremonies that we would not invite the public to, but certainly everyone is welcome at these. If anyone does attend, though, I highly recommend Googling how to behave at a powwow beforehand. One big example would be don't just take pictures of someone dressed up in regalia, in Indigenous regalia. Ask them first. Different things like that. Just like if you were visiting someone's home and you wanted to be respectful, that basically would cover it. But they are just, you feel something at those events that you don't feel anywhere else. I mean, it's just really powerful when you get there sometimes.
And we
Now, the one in Monroe, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Now I was going to say, we taking pictures, we also want to be careful that we're not trying to exploit anyone during this time. So that's for me, the biggest issue when people take pictures at these events and posting and everything. It's not an exploitation. This is for you to come, network, fellowship, and learn about culture.
And some people don't understand, like the water ceremony, it's sacred.
Right.
It is not to be photographed. It is not to be filmed.
Right.
And some people are just like, well, why? It's like, do you really need to understand when a group of people tell you this is sacred to us? We do not film it. We do not photograph it. Do I really need to explain to you why?
Right. Just respect it.
Right. Is your superiority so high that you think it's okay to ask me why? You know, and I find that sort of interesting. Well, why? Why not?
Because I said so. That's
right.
Like your mother used to say. Because
right.
I said
you know, so I completely understand what you're saying because I was at a water ceremony and I knew that. And there was a guy going, well, I don't understand why. Well, maybe you should just look it up. Someone has asked you not to do that. Well, I feel like I have the right. And I'm thinking, you're in someone else's, you have been invited into someone else's private space, and you think you have rights. And of course, this was not Black or brown person.
So this was a white man.
This was a white male.
This was a white man.
Right. And I just thought, really, you just think it's, well, I don't consider anything off limits. Of course you don't. And this is like sort of the attitude that I bet you're sort of experiencing from like what's going on with Custer, because everybody's, well, why not? Yeah. And it's like, how are you guys handling that? Because I'm sure you're going to the meetings in Monroe, which I would really like for you guys to let us know about the meetings so we can actually push it out and people can actually attend those meetings. If you let us know, we will post it.
Yeah, Julie, can you respond to the question that Denise just asked?
Oh, yeah, and back to that, yeah, it's very disrespectful, and it goes back to what Graham had mentioned about the lack of education. People don't know that we still exist. They don't know anything about our cultures. They think we're all one culture, and we're not. We're hundreds of different cultures, different languages. People will try to touch our hair. They're called our regalia costumes, and just really invasive, inappropriate, and you have to educate them all along the way. So it's imperative that we get textbooks changed, we get our message out there, and people will start to understand who we really are. And when we brought this subject up, and we had been speaking to the city council, it was their intention to put it on the ballot what to do with the monument, if they should be removed or stay where it is, on the November ballot and let the citizens decide. And we were like, really? You're going to put racism on the ballot in November? And the city is 90% white. How do you think it's going to go?
County is set. So how is that going to work out?
I like that. You put racism on it. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Julie.
But, you know, we were able to dissuade them from that. And so their alternative was to issue the RFQ and try to find someone that can guide them through the decision-making process. But ultimately, they will have to decide, they will have to vote on what to do with this thing. So they kind of, you know, they try to put it in another realm, but eventually they're going to have to decide, you know, based on what the facts that this RFQ person, you know, the proposal winner will tell them or recommend.
Right. I think one of the things that one of the reasons they haven't had a response is because anthropologists, cultural anthropologists and archaeologists would just be like, okay, do you really need me to tell you that this is wrong? This needs to come down. So I think one of the things is you don't find anybody who wants to fight that fight because they're just sort of looking like, seriously? Or like my kids would say, seriously, Dad? Do you need an adult in the room to say, okay, what this man has done culturally is disgusting and despicable. And there are a group of people who will be offended by this. And I'm sure that's one of the things, one of the reasons you haven't found someone, because people are into preserving what is
they consider theirs.
And, you know they're not going to be in favor when they go in and say, you know what, I can just tell you right now how this should go. Because one of the things you are starting to learn, especially in the universities, they're starting to actually teach true history, not the written history by the victors, but teach the other side of history, which is the true part of history. So to expect a college professor who's actually probably teaching, maybe a course in what's wrong with cultural appropriation to come in and say, yeah, I think it's a good idea you keep this statue. I don't think you're going to find that person.
Well, that we're going to find out tomorrow, because tomorrow afternoon is the meeting where they are going to announce everybody that's applied. And the reason why they do want to have a person is because whoever they find is not up for re-election this November. A lot of people forget we have they're all going to be either running up for election or, I think that it could hurt their chances if they came out and against it and made this move. That's just my thought too on that.
They could garner the national spotlight if they support this move. Now, I'm just curious, have you guys thought about going to the National Monuments Association, which actually now is looking at reevaluating monuments and statues that are located throughout the entire United States now under Biden? Because some of my understanding is that they are helping to actually remove these monuments, because now they're dealing with people of the community. They're dealing with cultural therapists, cultural psychologists, and they're talking to people, and they're starting to understand how this over a long period of time is affecting people. So is that something you guys are looking to do, or have you done that, gone to the National Monuments Association? Because I know there's a form you can fill out to request to have a monument moved.
We haven't reached out to that particular organization, but I have been a part of the Chicago Monuments Project. And Chicago is one of the 5 cities that's actually doing this. They're examining all their public art that on their city property. And they have 500 monuments in Chicago that they examined, and they flagged 41 of those as being problematic, not just with native themes, but with, any other theme that would be problematic to citizens. So I've learned a lot from attending those meetings and listening to the speakers. There's a lot of really progressive people and great artists with better ideas for public art than what we've had to deal with for the last 200 years. But we are aware of what's going on in the cities. We're learning from them, and we'll definitely reach out to this national group that you're speaking about.
Okay. Right. Now, Dr. Denton, I want to ask you something. Will you be at that meeting tomorrow?
I'd have to look at my work schedule, but just because they're just releasing the names of those people, I was going to check afterwards. You have to ask for an invite from City Council to get the Zoom link. But if I'm between patients, I'll be able to take a look at it. I think it's from 11 to 12.
Wait,
So I'd have
Did you both over here looking confused and discombobulated? Did you say that you have to request a link to attend your public city council meeting?
No.
This is a special meeting.
Oh, okay.
And City Council will be 7:30 on June 7th. This is just a special one for the RFQ, and they announced that if you want to participate or if you want to watch it, please request a link from the city clerk. So yes, just want to clarify, this is not, yes, that would be very bad, but no, that is not the case.
Because I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna have to go down to Monroe because I've heard of the Open Meetings Act. It's like, look, we were just so confused. We were like, wait, we have to go to Monroe now.
Right? It's like, who do we need to go see and call? What? Do we need to have a protest up there tomorrow?
Right? Because I mean, I'm telling you, as women of color, we are all into open meetings.
That's
okay,
right.
Don't hide anything from me because that's when deals are made and things are done that are going to affect us negatively.
Absolutely.
So it's like when you said that, we were starting like, oh my goodness, no. So they will announce the names, and then will they be discussing this in the meeting?
Before that, ladies and gentlemen, you are watching Speaking Truth to Power on Wjzz Cool TV, the coolest station in the world, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. Please like, follow, and subscribe. And if you would like to advertise or sponsor, please email us at wjzzcooltvofficial@gmail.com and join us each and every Sunday from 3 to 9 for our Backyard Boogie located at 19730 Roston Street, and on June 20th for a very special author showcase supporting literacy. And we are back with our guests, Dr. Graham Denton, Julie Dye, and Katie Beth Davis.
Now,
I've never had 3 guests and I have to say all you guys' names, so please excuse me.
Yeah, it's not you guys, it's us. We're like really honored. We get like one person, and we might get somebody to call in like halfway through the show. We pick somebody else up, but this is great. I hate that we actually have to do this, that we actually have to talk about this. This is, I mean, it's 2021, and I am just, it's hard. It is really hard. But I also want to talk about, I know we asked you guys a question, but I want to, because I know our time is getting short, I want to throw this in. You guys are actually doing is it a protest that's coming up? Is it on the 20th or 22nd?
25th.
25th of June?
June, yes, from 4:30 to 8:30, but technically till whenever it goes.
Okay, now explain to everybody who's watching and who's going to restream this and go on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, PBS, and find out. Explain to everyone what's going to be going on.
Yeah, and the exact location. The location.
So just promote it right now. There you go.
Go.
All right, so June 25th, we are going to be having a Custer Falls again, and hopefully for the last time demonstration. We are going to have speakers and some performers. We will be having jingle dancers, some drummers. The Anishinaabe Caucus is going to have a table there. We will be having some couple candidates that are running for offices around locally that are going to be attending, and it's just going to be, it's celebrating, but basically it's the 145th anniversary of when Custer did fall. So this is our rally to get the support and to show city council and the entire world that the statue needs to go.
Wanted to add in that it's a family event. It'll be safe. We encourage everyone to even bring their families, because we were able to secure a few performers, of course, for traditional performances, so you can really get some good education there, but also some modern performances from Indigenous people, including with the speaking. We feel that this is a fantastic event to come educate yourselves on, not just why the indigenous population of the Midwest and Michigan would want to remove this statute, but also many other issues that really it all comes full circle. Like I said, you can bring this into MMIW, which is missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls, that it all ties into all of these effects. And
215 Indigenous children that were just found in Canada. Just knowing that, and they're looking for more, and it didn't just happen in Canada, it happened here in the United States too. So we're also going to be having a food truck as well with Graham's favorite bread.
What's your favorite bread?
Fry bread.
Fry bread. The two patrons are Indigenous who run the food truck, and so I'm going to try to drop at least enough money to try every dish they have, because they actually have traditional dishes made from wild corn soup and things like that. So this is something that Monroe County really won't get a taste of a lot. So I really do encourage a lot of people to come out.
Right. Okay. Now I am sort of curious. I'm sorry, guys. I'm online just returning messages. I'm really curious now. How many people are allowed to come to the city council meeting? And at the city council meeting, will they actually be talking about the RFQ? Are they just going to, do you guys know are they just going to release the names, or if they had anybody apply? Will this be something that's brought up at the city council meeting?
So it goes like this. There's going to be, they're going to announce who the applicants, and then they're going to schedule the interviews with who applied. They're going to be doing interviews, and then they're going to invite whoever it is to submit their proposal, and then they have to review the proposal, and then there's a project team that follows up with the proposal and submits it to the city council, and then the city council will either approve, deny it, and that's going to be like, it's going to be through summer. So we should know, it says the city council will approve either, confirmation or denial August 2nd. And then the project is supposed to commence August 30th. So up until every single city council meeting, just so whoever it is that does take on this project, they need to keep on hearing why it needs to be removed. So we'll just keep reiterating every single, new points, new people. We've been doing this for a year now, so and we always find reasons, more and more reasons for it to come down. So
I understand that. You know what, Katie Beth, since you were the last one to talk, we have about 4 minutes left. I'll give you like a minute and a half to tell people what you want them to know, and then we'll move on to Julie and to Dr. Denton.
I just really want, I would love for Monroe County, I would just love for us to see some change and for equal representation for everybody that lives here. For so long, this town, it's the stereotypical, it has, the minorities live on, one side of the tracks, and on the other side is where all the, middle to upper class live. And I just want, so I'm a mom, I want my kids to not have to be able to do this. I don't want my kids to be doing this when they're 37 years old. I want kids in Monroe to want to actually stay here instead of want to leave. So if we get anything from this, it's just accountability and equality.
All right. Thank you very much, Katie. Julie, you?
Well, I just wanted to say that we did, May 21st, presented to the United Tribes of Michigan, which are the 12 federally recognized nations of Michigan. They're the peoples of the three fires. They're the people with ancestral ties to this land in Michigan. And Monroe is Potawatomi land. The United Tribes did vote unanimously to support us on the removal of this statute. So we've got the backing of all the tribes in Michigan. And we're going to expand on that. And just to say that the practice of allowing this dead hand of the past to push Indigenous people and marginalized groups away from public spaces It should be open and welcoming to everybody. That's what's damaging. It's not for everybody. It's something public art should reflect and be something everybody in society can be proud of, not just a segment. So.
You're right, Julie. Thank you very much. That was great. Dr. Denton?
I just want to reiterate that we're really pushing the education side of this, because when proponents of the statue first came to me, I realized that many of them were just unequipped and uneducated on the subject. So you simply have to start from there, because some people will push back who they don't understand what they're pushing back against or anything.
Right.
And also reiterate that there are 4 options with the RFQ, the request for qualifications with the city. And one of the options is nothing happens. So I want to remind everyone that in the end, city council and the mayor are going to be the ones who decide all of this. It's important to have them understand how important this is, because they simply don't. I've had meetings with some of them and they simply don't understand it. Even the mayor told me once, it's not true that Monroe people wouldn't visit Monroe because of Custer.
Yes,
we've had plenty of people call in now and tell him that's not the case. So I think that they needed an expert to come in and tell them what they already knew, that this is just a long game that they're trying to play. They hope that we go away. And that's why we're asking for support of bigger and bigger organizations. The United Tribes of Michigan was huge. It does not get any more concrete than the Indigenous people, the people who are actually recognized by the federal government, telling the city of Monroe, move that damn monument. Thank you.
You're absolutely right. And what I want from you guys is a guarantee that you will come back and let us know about this. We want to have you guys back actually before the powwow, and you can give us an update. And if you'll send us your change.org petition, we will actually post it. And if you also send us everything that's going on, we will actually post that.
Send us whatever you want to send us. We'll push it out. Is basically what Denise is saying.
Right.
You have supporters in us.
Right. You have supporters, and a lot of people in Detroit watch our shows, and a lot of activists. And sure.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. You've been watching Speaking Truth to Power. Please join us next Saturday at 10 o'clock a.m. And who's our guest?
Mikkel Gitman, I do believe.
All right.
But I'd like to thank Katie Beth, Julie, and Dr. Denton. Thank you guys so very much. And thank you, Dr. Denton, for taking time out with your family. Thank you also very much. And we are not going to let this go. So you're going to be hearing from us, and we are holding your feet to the fire. You have to come back.
All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Good night.